I wanted to go back to something that you said to Margaret earlier when you said that you have not underestimated ISIS's abilities. This is an organization that you once described as a JV team. I think a lot of Americans have this frustration that they see that the United States has the greatest military in the world. It has the backing of nearly every other country in the world when it comes to taking on ISIS. And I guess the question is, and if you'll forgive the language, is why can't we take out these bastards?
I think I've described very specifically what our strategy is.
Do you think you really understand this enemy well enough to defeat them and to protect the homeland?
I will tell you that the accuracy and the warnings that have been provided on the rise of radical Islamists over the last few years have been very, very clear. So what the president has actually received from the national intelligence system is pretty good intelligence, and I would say it's very accurate. So what he's done with that intelligence, from what we can tell right now, is he's taken on this really lousy policy.
What about this manipulation, this reported manipulation of the data that the intel analysts were being told, we don't like that message, fix it, to comport more with the narrative coming out of the White House?
Yeah,
it's not that the Iraqi soldiers abandoned, it's that they redeployed.
Yeah, I think that that this issue of not meeting a narrative out of the White House, which meant don't talk about radical Islam, don't talk about this as being a form of a radicalization of the Islamic religion, which in fact it is. It is a cancer inside of the Islamic religion, and the White House and the president, frankly, has not wanted to say that.
We do not need a reckless president who believes she is above the law. Lock her up. That's right. That's right. Lock her up. I'm going to tell you what. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yeah. I use hashtag Never Hillary. That's what I use.
This is retired Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, a one-time Army intelligence officer whose loyalty to Donald Trump likely will catapult him to one of the most important jobs in the Trump presidency. He's now the top contender to be National Security Advisor. Two senior military officers who served with him describe a somewhat bitter officer who adamantly believes President Obama isn't paying enough attention to the ISIS threat.
We must regain our ability to truly crush our enemies.
He's known for being a big critic of the Obama administration. He says
he was appointed by Obama,
right, no,
and it left badly.
He worked the Obama administration. He believes he was forced out of the Obama administration because of the criticism he put forth publicly and privately of the Obama administration, saying al-Qaeda had been defeated. He said, no, they haven't been defeated.
And we have some breaking news from the Trump transition. Officials have confirmed that former General Michael Flynn has accepted an offer to serve as President Trump's national security advisor. That is a key position for a general with a long career in military intelligence.
U.S. investigators are scrutinizing late December phone calls between Mike Flynn, President Donald Trump's national security advisor, and Russia's ambassador to the U.S. This is part of a broader counterintelligence investigation of Russian activities here in the U.S. Law enforcement and intelligence officials are telling CNN. The calls were captured by routine U.S. eavesdropping targeting the Russian diplomats, according to the intelligence and law enforcement officials.
Evan, why was the U.S. monitoring these phone calls to begin with?
Well, Wolf, the calls were heard in the course of monitoring of communications of Russian diplomats. According to the U.S. officials we've talked to, the U.S. intelligence agencies routinely capture communications of senior foreign officials, including those based in the United States. Now, we know that the FBI and the intelligence agencies briefed members of the Obama White House team before President Obama left office about the Flynn phone calls with the Russian ambassadors, according to the sources we've talked to.
Breaking news overnight. The president's national security advisor, Michael Flynn, forced to resign 3 weeks after the White House was told by the Justice Department that he could be vulnerable to Russian blackmail for not telling the truth about his contacts with the Russian ambassador.
The retired general had become a lightning rod for criticism over his ties with Russia. It was a relationship dating back to 2015 when Flynn sat right next to Vladimir Putin at a dinner in Moscow. But it was December 29, 2016 that became the beginning of the end for Flynn. That day, President Obama announced new sanctions against Russia, expelled 35 Russian diplomats, and closed 2 Russian compounds, all in retaliation for Moscow's efforts to influence the U.S. presidential election. That same day, Flynn had several phone calls with the Russian ambassador to the United States. The next day, December 30th, in what came as a surprise to the Obama administration, Putin said no Americans would be expelled from Russia and that he would await the inauguration of Donald Trump before taking any action.
National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleading guilty today to lying to the FBI, and now the announcement that he is cooperating with Special Counsel Mueller and the Russia investigation. Joining me now is the former Director of National Intelligence in the Obama administration, James Clapper. He's the top intelligence official.
For me, the first thing that came to mind is that, at least right now, the rule of law does prevail in this country, and that to me is very important.
Does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir. Truth on this will come out.
After Trump won the election and he came to the White House to meet with President Obama, we now know that at that meeting, President Obama warned him specifically, do not hire Mike Flynn to be your national security advisor. Now, President Obama does not appear to have taken that kind of action about anybody else involved in the Trump campaign or the transition or the Trump administration. He chose at his meeting in the Oval Office with Trump to single out Mike Flynn as a danger, to warn him not to bring him on in any powerful role.
This is not a hoax. It's not fake. It's real. And I think as a friend and admirer of Jim Comey, I think there's a certain amount of indication there.
Do you think more heads will roll over this incident?
You know, it's hard to say whether or not more heads will roll. Let's remember that the other individuals who've come up in this, Paul Manafort, Carter Page, did not join the administration.
What do you think about the idea that has been put forward by Flynn's lawyers and then kind of recanted today that Mr. Flynn was duped by the FBI agents that came to the White House?
Well, I don't believe that is the case. There was tremendous interest in trying to understand better what was going on and who was involved in any type of inappropriate or even illegal activity. President Obama sought the counsel of individuals who knew Mike, and President Obama knew him as well, knew of his reputation, and just said that he was not the right person to be the national security advisor for the Trump administration. His performance at the Republican National Convention and other types of things that he was involved in, I think really raised people's made people question what he was doing.
President Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, arriving for sentencing after pleading guilty to lying, expecting there was a very good chance that he would walk out with no prison time.
Michael Flynn walking into court today, head held high, scattered protesters, but also supporters cheering him on. Words of encouragement from President Trump. Good luck today in court, he tweeted. In court, Flynn was smiling, but Judge Emmett Sullivan was not. He tore into the former general for lying to the FBI about his contacts with the Russian ambassador and for illegally operating as an unregistered agent for the Turkish government. Pointing to the American flag, the judge said Flynn's secret work undermines everything this flag over here stands for, adding, arguably, you sold your country out. The judge said he felt disgust and disdain. Flynn took a deal with Special Counsel Robert Mueller, spending 19 sessions talking to investigators. In exchange, Mueller recommended Flynn do no time. The judge said he was seriously considering sending Flynn to prison, saying, I cannot assure you if you proceed today that you will not receive a sentence of incarceration. The FBI director at the time of the interview, James Comey, blasted any suggestion that Flynn was treated unfairly, a notion promoted by some House Republicans.
Oh, come on. Look at what's happened to the Republican Party. They're up here attacking the FBI's investigation of a guy who pled guilty to lying to the FBI.
Let's remember what this is about. This was a pretextual crime created by the FBI and by Sally Yates, the acting attorney general. Remember, after the election, Hillary Clinton needed a reason why she lost. Enter Russian collusion. Part of that was to find somebody in the administration to frame for talking to the Russians. They found General Flynn.
White House officials are not backing away from their claim that he was ambushed.
All of General Flynn's conversations with the Russian ambassador and everybody else were legal. So why did the FBI approach him? They knew what he said. They knew it was legal. The answer is they wanted to frame him.
Growing calls for Attorney General William Barr's resignation. This comes after Barr ordered a review in the criminal case of President Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, who pled guilty to lying to the FBI. Democratic lawmakers are calling Barr's actions unprecedented and say it's setting a dangerous path for the Justice Department.
Speculation now rising on whether former National Security Advisor General Michael Flynn could soon be exonerated. New court documents filed under seal Friday said to include significant exculpatory evidence. Shocking new reports suggest FBI General Counsel Dana Boente was acting in coordination with FBI Director Christopher Wray to block the release of that evidence that would have cleared General Flynn.
General Flynn was innocent and was completely set up and framed by the upper echelon of the FBI, that small group of the highest ranking members of the FBI that deliberately set about from at least August 15, 2016 on to catch General Flynn in something and either prosecute him or get him fired. The U.S. Attorney, Assistant U.S. Attorney Joyce Lynn Ballantyne, assigned to the case, has advised us since Friday that they're working to unredact or redact certain parts of the documents that were filed under seal on Friday so that they can be disclosed publicly either tomorrow or Wednesday. It can't happen soon enough.
It's now likely we're going to find out he was framed. Imagine that, being framed by our own government and by political operatives who don't like you. And I think that's what we're going to find out.
He's being prosecuted now for allegations he lied to the FBI about a call he made with the Russian ambassador when he was the incoming national security advisor. Suggesting he didn't lie is one thing, and that he's being prosecuted maliciously. You understand, Joe? Suggesting this whole thing was him being framed and set up is an entirely different level of holy.
The government violated Judge Sullivan's standing orders to turn over exculpatory information. Look, Flynn was ambushed. He was the target of a coordinated leak campaign, as John Durham is now investigating, of classified information, which was also a crime. Comey sent his FBI people over there secretly to ambush him for the interview. They concluded initially he didn't lie. Then they changed their story later. Now it looks like they were withholding information from the court and that they were trying to force him to plead out by threatening his son, something they didn't want to tell the court or the public about. There's all this misconduct around the prosecution of, again, the victims of the deep state, in this case, General Flynn. He should not only be exonerated, the president should pardon him just to be sure, because if Biden or anyone else wins in November other than the president, you can bet the same gang is going to come back and try to re-prosecute him either on this or other charges.
And remember, we had in our report that General Flynn, the FBI, didn't believe that General Flynn had lied. And here we are 2 years later with still no justice for General Flynn.
Here's Maria Bartiromo, who clearly knows something from a source. She mentions Baker. Baker was the lead lawyer at the FBI. He was Comey's right-hand man, Jim Baker.
Those documents are exculpatory evidence. They were not shown to the court initially, and basically what they say are they are notes about Michael Flynn's meeting at the White House with the FBI, that it was a complete setup and that he never lied. It's all in Mr. Baker's notes. That's the exculpatory evidence.
That was quite a little nugget drop there. So the lead lawyer in the FBI took notes indicating that when Mike Flynn was interviewed by the FBI at the White House, that he's being prosecuted for lying, but his own notes indicate he was telling the truth. Whoa.